Hey guys, tonight we descend into something cold, something quiet, something that remembers. Beneath the chapel of St. Evelyn lies a crypt sealed by stone and superstition, a place even the rats have learned to tiptoe through. It doesn't welcome you, it watches you. The deeper you go, the heavier your thoughts get, like someone's draped wet wool over your mind. You clutch a lantern, your fingers cold against the iron. The flame flutters like it's scared too. And yeah, just between us, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. 3 steps in, the air cools. 10 steps in, it turns wet. By 20, you swear the darkness is leaning in, learning you. At the 33rd step, the number etched above in faded Latin numerals, the door behind you swings shut, with no wind. You don't even flinch, that's just Brighthollow hospitality. At the bottom is a small archway framed by old iron. You duck through, careful not to knock the lantern against anything. That's when you hear it. Not your footsteps, not your breathing, not even your heart. Nope. That was a whisper. 1 syllable. Unclear, but hungry. The corridor ahead opens into a vaulted chamber, every inch carved with Latin script, some words scratched out violently. A popular medieval theory claimed that sacred text, once erased, let memory escape the stone. Sort of like giving history a jailbreak. Historians still argue whether that belief came from early Roman superstitions or was cooked up later by paranoid monks with too much free time and not enough daylight. You run your hand across one of the deeper etchings. It tingles, then burns. When you jerk away, the skin on your palm is flushed red in the shape of a single word, memorar. It fades after a moment, but not from your thoughts. The chamber splits left and right. You don't choose the left path. It just takes you, almost politely, the way a dream nudges you forward without saying why. The passage narrows. Your lantern flickers. Something shifts ahead. A door. Wood and bone lashed together. Around it, old wax seals cracked and melted, as if someone didn't just want it closed, but forgotten. You reach for the latch, but hesitate. It's humming. No joke. The wood is humming like a tuning fork buried in mud. Then it stops. Then it breathes. You open it anyway, because of course you do. Inside, a room domed in black stone. In the center, a table. On the table, nothing. Until you blink. Then there's something. A silver key. Old. Bent slightly at the end. Wrapped in a red ribbon that hasn't faded. You pick it up. And everything shifts. A low groan rolls through the crypt like distant thunder. Behind you, the door creaks closed again. But the key in your hand feels warm now. It knows where it belongs. You step forward, and the room behind you disappears. You don't turn. The crypt doesn't like backward glances. Neither do memories. To your right now, a new corridor. This one's slick with condensation. The walls pulse faintly, stone veins like tree roots, glowing dim beneath your lantern's light. Then, footsteps, real ones. Slow, measured, just behind your own. You spin around. Nothing. You wait. Still nothing. But the rhythm continues. The echo of a second person pacing you exactly, always half a beat behind. You breathe slower, try to match the rhythm, and you realize the footsteps are yours. Or at least, they used to be. Welcome to the part of the crypt that remembers everything you forget. Here's a quirky tidbit for you. In the 14th century, a monk in Brighthollow claimed this crypt could absorb sin by touch. He suggested burying condemned men face down so their guilt would leach into the stone, purifying them. His idea caught on for about 3 months, until he started hearing voices from the floor. Then he was reassigned to the sea with no boat. You reach the next chamber. It smells like dusted feathers and cold wax. A strange combination unless you've ever visited an ancient library run by birds. That's a joke, mostly. In the center stands a statue, a knight kneeling, hands outstretched. His face is missing, chiseled clean off, but there's a slot in his palms. You place the key inside. The statue exhales dust, and a panel in the wall slides open. Behind it, just more dark, but the kind of dark that wants something. You step through, and the crypt remembers a little more of you. The moment you pass through the hidden panel, the air shifts. It's thicker here, almost syrupy. You have to breathe slower, as if the very act of inhaling is a negotiation. The lantern flame dances erratically, casting more shadows than light, some of which don't belong to you. The corridor bends left, then left again, until you realize, yeah, this place is trying to fold you back on yourself like a piece of parchment no one wanted read. The footsteps return, only now they're sharper, a half-second too late. Still yours, but echoing something you haven't done yet. You stop. They stop after you. You lift your lantern, they don't. You lower it, they raise theirs. Okay, that's new. You don't panic. Not yet. This is Brighthollow, after all. The city of ghosts with better manners than the living. You step into a chamber lined with copper discs on every wall, burnished smooth about the size of a dinner plate. Some gleam in the light. Others are tarnished black. Curious, you step closer, and your reflection steps closer too. But not all of them do. In the third disc on the left, your reflection lags, just for a blink. It tilts its head while yours stays straight. You freeze, it smiles. You do not. Nope, not creepy at all. You keep walking. Every disc reflects you from a slightly different angle, but none of them quite match. One is older. One wears a different cloak. One is bleeding. One is headless. Let's all just agree not to look at that one again. The corridor opens into what looks like a library, if libraries were designed by fever dreams. Shelves carved into the walls, floor to ceiling, holding nothing but candles. Hundreds, maybe thousands. All unlit except one. Far at the back, a single flame flickers. Not like your lantern. This one dances more like it's alive. And it's blue, which is never a great sign in historical architecture. You approach, because of course you do. It rests above a pedestal. On it, an open ledger, its pages blank. But the closer you get, the more you realize. The words are writing themselves. You lean in, squint, and there it is. Your name, not Aldrich, yours. And beneath it, a date. Today's date. And beneath that, a description of what you just did. You step back. The page updates. You blink. It corrects a typo. All right. Nope. This book has editorial power and no chill. This is what scholars once whispered about as the Ledger of Reversal. A rumored relic from the early monastic orders that could rewrite not only memory, but truth itself. Theoretically, anyway. Historians still argue whether the legend originated from real accounts or was simply a poetic allegory about confession and power. Quaint, until the book starts asking you questions. They appear in fresh ink. Do you remember her name? You don't. Who? Another line. The one you left. The candle sputters, blue flaring white. You look at the flame and see a face in it. Not clearly, but enough. Long hair. Pale. Eyes that glint gold in firelight. You've never seen her before, except your heart says otherwise. You close the book. It doesn't protest. But your hand is shaking. And not from cold. You move on, lantern casting a nervous glow ahead. The walls change here, no longer stone, but packed earth. You're under something now, something old and heavy. You duck into a passage supported by wooden beams, some rotting. There's a faint drip, water maybe, or blood, or memory liquefied. Who knows at this point? Then you hear it. Music. Software like a hymn half remembered. A children's lullaby turned just a bit off key. like someone hummed it too many times in grief and it forgot how to be comforting. You follow it, and find yourself in a chamber shaped like a chapel turned inside out. The pews are bones, the altar is shattered, and behind it, a stained glass window, glowing, even though there's no light. The image? A knight. Kneeling. Same as the statue, but this time he's facing someone cloaked in red, hood down, her face hidden. And here's the real kicker. The glass is warm to the touch. Behind the altar, another book. This one's smaller, locked shut with a silver clasp shaped like a raven. The key from earlier doesn't fit, but your name is on the spine. You pocket it, like that's not the most cursed decision you've made all night. You step through a narrow arch flanked by skulls set into the walls like decorative sconces. One of them still has teeth. And braces? Okay, you didn't expect orthodontics in a medieval crypt. But hey, fringe dental history for the win. It's a tight fit. You squeeze through and suddenly everything goes silent. No music, no echoes, not even your heartbeat. You're in a chamber that eats sound. Stone lined with what looks like black wool, but it's not. It's hair, braided into the walls. Dozens of strands, long, silvered. At the far end, a chair, simple, wood, unadorned. But when you sit in it, you see. Not with your eyes, but with your memory. And it's not your own. You're standing in the crypt. But it's different, brighter, cleaner, newly carved. And someone is burying something behind the altar, not someone. You. Except, not quite. And then the vision shatters. You're back in the hair-lined chamber, lantern dimming. Only now, you're not alone. A figure stands across from you, cloaked in red, silent. No face, just a hand raised pointing back the way you came. Guess you're not done retracing your steps. You backtrack. Slowly. Not out of fear. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly because every inch of this crypt now feels booby-trapped with memories you didn't ask for. The lantern feels heavier than before. Or maybe that's just your brain, loaded with glimpses of lives that might have been yours. Or might have been staged by an overzealous spirit with a flair for drama. The red-cloaked figure doesn't follow, but you swear you still feel it, like someone watching you blink from the inside of your own eyelids. Yeah, that kind of watching. You pass the pews of bone again. This time, one turns its skull just a fraction as you pass. You do that thing where you pretend not to notice. Classic ghost etiquette. At last, you're back at the copper-mirrored hallway, still tarnished, still wrong, but something shifted. Your reflection is synchronized again. Except for one disc, cracked now, a thin line through the middle like someone tried to split your image in half. You run your fingers over the glass. It's warm. Not metaphorically. Actually, warm. Behind the wall, you hear a grinding noise. Stone on stone. Hidden passage opening? Secret chamber of unresolved trauma? Could go either way. You press your palm flat and the wall gives. Behind it, stairs. Narrow, winding, slick with moisture. You descend, because this is Brighthollow, and of course the answers are always somewhere darker. This new chamber is circular. Dome ceiling. Carved reliefs cover every surface. Scenes of a knight kneeling, offering a blade to a woman in red. Repeated over and over like a stuck record. But there's something new in the center. A shallow pool, still, black as ink. And in it, floating gently, is another you. Eyes open. Breathing. You kneel beside the pool. The reflection mimics you, like a mirror. But it blinks out of sync. You reach down. The surface doesn't ripple. Instead, it grips your fingers. Not pulls, just holds. Cool, but not cold. Familiar, but not comforting. And in that moment, memories that aren't yours come flooding back. A monastery in the mountains. You know someone with your voice, arguing about doctrine. A betrayal. A fire. A woman in red crying out something in a language no one speaks anymore. And behind it all, a sense that this crypt wasn't always a tomb. It was once a vault. For memories, others' memories, stored, archived, buried. And maybe you're one of them. You stumble back. The pool fades, becoming still water again. Whatever was speaking through it is quiet now. You light another candle from your lantern and set it at the edge of the pool, just a little human light against all this forgotten weight. On one of the walls, you spot a panel etched with names, dozens, maybe hundreds, all scratched out, except one, not yours, not Aldrich's. Her name, you finally know it now. Isolde, and your chest tightens in a way that isn't fear or love, but grief shaped like both. You press your fingers to the name, and the wall rotates, revealing a corridor lit with lanterns already burning. This must be what you were supposed to find. The corridor leads downward, deeper still. As you descend, the architecture shifts, less crypt, more catacomb meets cathedral. Pillars shaped like weeping monks, floors carved with spirals that loop like fingerprints. You're walking into something that's been waiting for you. At the end, a door, iron, massive, locked with 3 turning rings, each etched with symbols you don't recognize. Well, except one. The middle ring bears the same insignia that was on your childhood pendant. The one you thought was decorative. The one Aldrich gave you in that dream you never quite remembered until now. Turns out it's a key. You press it to the metal. The rings shift. The door opens with a sound like a sigh across centuries. Inside, light, actual light. Golden, warm. It's a garden. Underground. Impossible. But here it is. Flowers blooming where no sun ever touched. A stream bubbling with silver water. Vines climbing up columns that glow faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. You step in, and for the first time since entering the crypt, you feel whole. Until you see her, Isolde, sitting by the stream, real, alive, or at least close enough. She turns. Her eyes are the same gold you saw in the flame. Her smile is soft but doesn't reach her eyes. You took your time, she says. You laugh because what else do you do? Wasn't sure I was invited. She stands, walks toward you, doesn't make a sound. You remember? You nod. But do you? Sort of. She touches your chest, just above your heart. That's what matters. It's not about what's true. It's about what's remembered. You ask her what this place is. She looks around. A seed, she says, of everything we lost. Behind her, a tree rises in the center of the garden. You didn't notice it before. Its bark is dark and smooth. Its leaves shimmer silver. Hanging from its branches, fragments. Not fruit, memories. Held in little glass globes. One shows you as a child. Another, Aldrich, younger, weeping beside a grave. Another, Isolde, cloaked in red, stealing a book. They're pieces of us, she says, the ones we give away so we can survive. You reach for one. It shatters. And suddenly, you're somewhere else. Watching Brighthollow burn, watching Isolde run, watching yourself turn away. Cowardice? Survival? Historians still argue whether memory is truth or just the stories we keep telling ourselves to avoid falling apart. The vision fades. You're back beneath the tree, and Isolde is gone. In her place, the red cloak, folded neatly. Waiting, you don't know what it means yet. But you pick it up and keep walking. The cloak feels heavier than it looks. Velvet, but not worn. Lined with something that hums faintly when your fingers brush it. You drape it over your shoulders, and instantly, the garden's warmth pulls away like breath sucked from a candle. You're not cold exactly, but there's an absence now. Like the cloak remembered something your skin had forgotten, and decided it was better that way. You turn back toward the corridor. The garden offers no more paths, and the door doesn't close behind you. Instead, the rings lock again, not with a click, but a low chime, like a clock announcing the hour. Except there's no telling which hour this might be. You descend further. The path becomes narrower, steeper. The spiral patterns on the floor start rising up the walls, then shift into script. Not any language you know, but your eyes read it anyway. Names, dates, choices. One reads, "A brother betrayed." Another, "A child spared." Then, disturbingly close to the center, a memory traded for peace. But only for a second. The door sighs open. And you're in his chamber now. Aldrich's. You know it before the room even reveals itself. The faint scent of iron and ink. The shelves packed with books that look untouched but somehow dog-eared in your dreams. And at the center, a desk. Upon it, a map of Brighthollow. But not just Brighthollow. Layers of Brighthollow. Above, below, inside, beyond. Hidden levels. Chambers sealed long before your birth. Or maybe even his. And marked across the map, 12 red circles. Each accompanied by a single word. Some are names, others, emotions. One just says, you. You lean closer. One circle flashes faintly. It pulses as if in time with your heart. And when you touch it, your vision shifts. Suddenly, you're back in the street. Brighthollow as it is now. Gloomy, chaotic, real. You watch yourself walk by. But you don't remember this. You're older, different, holding a letter, nervous. You stop at a door, knock. A woman answers. Isolde. She doesn't recognize you, but she lets you in. The memory fractures. You're ripped away. Back to Aldrich's chamber. The map now burns faintly. The red circles have faded. One remains. Directly under the city's northern wall, a place marked Vault of Remission. You've heard whispers of it in market corners. A myth, a prison, some say. A reliquary, say others. Historians still argue whether it was a failed experiment in magical repentance or just a really unfortunate wine cellar that ended badly. But something tells you it's the last stop. You leave the chamber. Follow the path marked on the back of the cloak. You didn't notice it before. The stitching's subtle, but it glows under your lantern's flicker. You find the exit easily this time, as if the crypt's finally done hiding things from you. You emerge beneath the city. A hidden staircase leads you behind a butcher's stall in the lower quarter. Of course it does. The street is alive again. Evening. The Brighthollow sky tinged green with sickly fog and a full moon swollen like it had one too many. You move through the crowd unnoticed, the cloak making people instinctively avoid you. One child looks up, stares into your eyes, then bursts into tears. You feel bad. But also, what kind of parent brings a toddler to the meat district after sundown? You reach the wall. The bricks are older here, less uniform, stained. You press your hand where the map indicated. Stone grinds, and just like that, the vault opens. No grand fanfare, just dust, silence. You descend again. This place smells older than time, and colder. A different kind of cold, not skin, but soul. You pass rows of alcoves. Each holds a mirror, shattered or empty. At the end, one final door, and on it, your face, not a carving, a reflection, but you're not standing in front of it anymore. The face on the door smiles, then it speaks. You're late. You want to answer, but no sound comes out. You reach for the handle. The face vanishes. Inside is nothing, not darkness, nothing, until you step through and fall, not down, just away. For a second, you're everywhere. In the memory of your birth, in the memory of your death, in a library that smells like wet parchment and blood ink, in Aldrich's arms as he lifts you from the rubble, in Isolde's breath as she tells you to forget, and then you land, on stone, back in the garden. But it's winter now. The flowers are gone. The tree is bare. At its base, the cloak folded once more. You're alone again, but different, because now you remember. You don't rush to stand up. The garden, now swaddled in frost, seems quieter than it should be. Not silent. There's always a murmur in Brighthollow's bones, but subdued, like even the ghosts are holding their breath. You rise, brushing the dust from your palms, though you're not sure if it's dust or something older. Memory sediment, maybe, from everything you just lived or dreamed or borrowed. The tree, once golden and proud, now stretches skeletal branches to the overcast sky. No birds, no wind, just the soft, snowless cold that comes before a reckoning. You walk toward the cloak again. It sits there exactly as before, folded with reverence, waiting, but something inside you resists. You could wear it again. You know that. It would open another door, another descent. But for now, your path curls outward, not down. You leave it behind. The corridor out has changed. It's no longer stone, but something like ice and bone. The walls echo your footsteps seconds after you've made them, like they're remembering the way you walk for later use. You emerge into a new space. A chapel, or what used to be one. The pews are gone. The stained glass is broken. The altar has collapsed inward like it regretted ever being the center of anything. But the ceiling remains, and on it, painted in fading gold, a mural of Brighthollow. Not as it is or was, but as it might have been. Clean streets, smiling faces, trees taller than rooftops, a sky without rot. Utopia. You stare for a while, and then realize you're not alone. A figure kneels at the foot of the fallen altar. Cloaked, yes. Familiar number. You inch closer. The figure doesn't flinch. It's humming. A lullaby. One you haven't heard since childhood. And then you do flinch, because you remember who sang it to you. Your mother, but she's long gone, isn't she? The figure turns. It's not her face. And yet, it almost is. The eyes aren't right. Too calm, too old. You found the vault, she says. It's not a question. You try to respond, still no voice, like the vault took more than you realized. She doesn't mind. She gestures to the fallen altar. You sit beside her. She places a small object in your hand. A pendant. Bronze. Engraved with a sigil you've seen carved into the walls of 3 places so far. The crypt, Aldrich's chamber, and the hidden staircase beneath the butcher's stall. A serpent swallowing its tail. Ouroboros. Endless return. You blink. And now the chapel is full. Figures in robes all seated where the pews used to be. None speak. Some don't even have faces, just blurs of memory where their identity used to be. You look back at the woman beside you. She's gone. The pendant remains in your hand. You close your fingers around it. The figures in the chapel hum together. Same lullaby. Then they vanish, one by one, like candle flames snuffed in reverse. You're alone again. The chapel shudders, then crumbles, not fast, not loud, just tired. And you walk away before the roof decides to follow the rest. You're above ground now. You can tell by the air. It smells like mildew and chimney smoke. The street lights flicker. A distant bell rings once, then again. Midnight. You're standing in the upper wards now. No idea how you got here. But your boots are clean. Too clean. The pendant pulses once. You feel drawn east, toward the governor's archive. A place no one goes after dark. Not because of ghosts or laws, but because everyone knows secrets restless enough to whisper have a tendency to do more than whisper there. You follow the pull, past statues of forgotten leaders, past a fountain filled with ink-black water and 7 silver coins. You reach the archive gates. They open for you. No guards. No resistance. Inside, silence. Except for the ticking. Loud, deliberate, like a heartbeat disguised as a clock. You walk past rows of sealed books, their covers stitched shut with gold wire. Past cases of things you don't recognize. A mask that seems to breathe. A sword that drinks the light around it. A bottle labeled Tears of the Last Honest Man, which honestly feels a bit dramatic. Finally, you reach the central chamber, and there it is, the mirror. You've heard of it, of course. Everyone has. They say it only shows you what the world refuses to remember. Historians still argue whether it was originally made by monks, alchemists, or something even older that didn't use hands. You stand before it. Your reflection doesn't match. It smiles when you don't, moves when you're still, then mouths something. 3 words. Do you remember? You don't answer the mirror. Maybe because you can't, or maybe because part of you thinks answering would confirm something you're not ready for, like signing a contract in blood without reading the fine print. The reflection waits anyway, its smile just a bit too knowing. You blink, and suddenly, the mirror isn't reflecting anymore. It's displaying, like a screen from some twisted theater. You watch, paralyzed, as an image fades in, the crypt again. But this time, it's not empty. You're there, except not you now, you then. You kneel before a stone slab, candlelight flickering over your face. You seem scared. And behind you, a cloaked figure holding a blade, not menacing, almost reverent. You flinch as the blade touches your skin. But you don't scream, you welcome it. The vision blurs. Next, a library. The Brighthollow monastic archive, centuries before the fire that burned it. You recognize the wooden arches, now long since ash, scrolls everywhere. And there, you are again. No scars, no pendant, but your eyes are filled with desperate purpose. You're arguing with a monk, an older man shaking his head. You pound your fist on the desk, point to something, a passage in an ancient language. He says a word, loud enough that even through the mirror's silence you can almost hear it. It sounds like requiriat. Then darkness again. Your reflection returns, now holding something, a book. Your old journal, the one you left behind, the one that burned with the rest of your life. Your reflection opens it, and a pressed flower falls out. A white lily, the same flower carved onto the vault door deep below the city. You reach toward the mirror, and your hand goes through. You fall. You fall like before, but this time it's faster, colder, like time wants to spit you out before you learn too much. You land on stone, again, except this time, you're not alone. 4 figures surround you, each in different attire. One in armor, one in priest's robes, one in plague doctor garb, and one in a blacksmith's apron. They all wear the Ouroboros sigil somewhere, belt buckles, pendants, even branded into skin. They speak as one. The city remembers, even when its people do not. You try to stand, they don't stop you. The crypt is not just a grave, the blacksmith says. It's a vault. The vault is not just a chamber, the priest adds. It's a covenant. The covenant is not just a promise, the knight continues. It's a prison. And the prisoner, the doctor finishes, is you. You laugh. You don't mean to, but come on. That's classic villain monologue material. If this were a game, this would be the cutscene where everything goes off the rails and your moral alignment gets flipped. Except it's not a game, and the blade in your pocket, wait, since when did you have a blade, is warm against your side, pulsing like a second heartbeat. You draw it. The 4 vanish. You stand alone in a room of mirrors, each one showing a version of yourself you don't recognize. A soldier, a scribe, a fugitive, a healer, all of them carrying the same burden, all of them wearing that cursed pendant. You choose one mirror. Touch it. You shift again. You're standing in a workshop now. A real one. Hammers, sawdust, and the faint scent of beeswax polish in the air. The blacksmith from before stands across from you, now without the hood. He looks exhausted. Had to break your cycle somehow, he mutters. The forge remembers what the mind forgets. He hands you something wrapped in cloth. You open it. A key. Heavy, cold, older than the city itself. It opens the final vault, he says, but only when you're ready. You ask him what's inside. He sighs. Your true name. You blink. Not metaphorical, not mystical. Just literal. A name. You've had so many. Lost so many. Aldrich was the latest. Convenient. Vague enough to slip into. But your first name? You don't remember it, and apparently that's the point. You step outside the workshop. Brighthollow is burning. Not real fire, memory fire. You recognize it. From stories, from old fever dreams. The Great Purge of 647. Historians still argue whether it was a citywide rebellion, a divine reckoning, or a botched cleansing ritual gone sideways. All agree on one thing. The city burned from the inside out. Secrets were ash, and names, real names, were erased. And you were there. Not as a savior, not even as a hero, but as a witness, maybe more. You run, through flame and flicker. The pendant guides you, back to the catacombs, deeper than before. This time the vault is waiting. No doors, just a circle of candles and the outline of a sigil on the floor. Ouroboros again, but this time broken, split open. You step into it, and the world blinks. You feel every version of yourself shudder, collapse, realign. You're not one person anymore. You're all of them. The healer, the knight, the fugitive, the one who made the promise, the one who broke it. You see your name carved into the wall. Not Aldrich, not any name you know, just a symbol, a sound. You whisper it, and the vault opens. Inside, not treasure, not bones, but a chair, and someone sitting in it. They look up. They have your face, and they say, "Finally." The figure in the chair doesn't rise. He just sits there, your mirror image, though maybe a bit older, eyes rimmed with something deeper than fatigue. Regret, perhaps, or boredom, like he's been waiting for centuries, and now that you're here, he's not sure it was worth the trouble. You step forward cautiously, but the moment stretches like taffy. Every footstep echoes tenfold, not just here, but through time, memory, dust. "You made it further than most," he says finally. His voice sounds like your own, but slower, like it's been sitting in brine. Most? Most versions of us. You don't sit, though the urge pulls at you like gravity. Instead, you ask the obvious. What is this place? He smiles, not kindly. This is the end seat. Every bearer of the pendant ends up here eventually. Some take centuries. Some, just a few nights. You, though, you were stubborn. He gestures to the pendant, and you realize it's no longer on your chest. It's on his. The chain wraps around him like roots. You try to reach for it instinctively, but he lifts a finger. Careful. Memory has edges sharper than steel. You lower your hand. Behind him, the walls pulse. Images, no, lives, swirl and bleed together. A battlefield drenched in rain. A monastery under siege. A market square where someone screams your name as you're dragged away. You flinch. He notices. "This chair doesn't hold people," he murmurs. "It holds truths." You ask if that means he's you. He chuckles. "That's the wrong question." "Then what's the right one?" His smile fades. "Who are you now that you've come this far?" It's infuriating, like talking in riddles with someone who's memorized all the answers but refuses to share the key. You cross your arms. Fine. You're the memory of a past version of me, or maybe the original. But what does that mean for the city? For Brighthollow? He tilts his head. "Ah, there it is. Still thinking like a guardian." You shake your head. "I'm not..." "Yes, you are. Because even now, you're trying to protect it. Pretending there's something left to save." The pendant glows faintly. It was never about saving Brighthollow. It was about remembering why it was lost in the first place. A pause. He stands now, slowly. The roots of the pendant fall away like dust. You expect a grand reveal, a prophecy, maybe a sword forged in time flames. What you get? A candle? One small, ordinary beeswax candle. He presses it into your palm. "Take this back to the crypt, light it, and listen." "That's it?" He nods, then begins to fade. "Wait, what happens to you?" You call out. "I become a memory," he says, already transparent. "And if you're not careful, so will you." With that, he's gone. You're alone, again. You take the candle, leave the vault, and retrace your steps through the catacombs. No illusions this time. No whispering shadows or fragment echoes. Just you. Footsteps. Silence. Back in the crypt, the air feels different. Cleaner. Or maybe emptier. You set the candle down. Strike a match. The flame flickers to life. And immediately, the walls around you begin to shift. Not physically. Mentally. Emotionally. You remember. You remember a time before the city fell, when Brighthollow was a sanctuary of knowledge, protected by the Order of the Ouroboros. Not a cult, not a secret society, but a guild of keepers. You were one of them, a historian, trained to preserve the names, the memories, the truths others wanted to forget. But when the city turned inward, when the High Assembly ordered the Great Redaction, your order resisted. You preserved forbidden knowledge, sheltered relics, protected stories, and were branded traitors. They burned the archives, sealed the vaults, erased the names, yours included. That's when the pendant was forged. Not to protect you, but to contain you. It's not a talisman. It's a leash. You fall to your knees, the memory collapsing on your chest like stone. The candle burns low, and then you hear a voice. Not your own, not the other you, but hers. I never forgot you. You lift your head. She stands at the entrance of the crypt, cloaked, hood down. You know her. From the dreams, from the memory flashes, from before the pendant. She walks toward you, barefoot on cold stone, and kneels beside you. Her hand touches yours. Your name, she says softly, was not Aldrich. It was Elior. The word clicks into place, like the final gear in an ancient lock. Elior. It means, God is my light, in one of the older tongues. It was your mother's last gift before she gave you to the Order. You say it aloud, and the crypt responds. The walls shimmer, the stone glows. Names begin to appear, real names, thousands of them. The redacted, the forgotten, the ones who dared remember. You've broken the seal. You've begun the reckoning. Not with fire, but with truth. The pendant crumbles in your hand. She smiles. The city is waking up. And in the distance, you hear it. The first chime of the old bell tower, silenced for generations. The sound of memory returning. You rise, candle still flickering low in your hand, its wax pooling like memory on your fingers. The crypt no longer feels like a tomb. It breathes, softly, reverently, like it's just stirred from a centuries-long sleep. And those names on the walls? They continue to etch themselves, slow and deliberate, as if each one is a prayer finally spoken aloud. The woman, no, the seer, leads you through a narrow arch you'd never noticed before. You don't ask where it goes, you just follow. The city's bones remember, she murmurs, even when its people forget. The tunnel curves downward, and the air thickens with earth, moss, and, oddly enough, cinnamon. Somewhere in the gloom, water trickles over stone. You flash her a look. She shrugs, half smiling. Cinnamon. It was used in ancient embalming rites, helped preserve the body, and confuse the rats. You both laugh. It's a strange, warm sound in this place, one you hadn't heard from yourself in who knows how long. Then, without warning, the passage opens into a vast underground chamber. At first glance, it resembles a cathedral. Arched ceilings, ancient pews, fractured mosaics, but everything here is subterranean, root-tangled, eroded by time and the slow drip of forgotten truths. A mural spans the far wall, cracked but legible. You approach. The mural shows the founding of Brighthollow, back when it was called Halowen, a convergence point of scholars, mystics, and artisans. It had no rulers, just a rotating council called the Circle of Hands. Decisions were made by consensus, not decree. Ideas were shared, not hoarded. The pendant, then a symbol of memory, not control, hung above the central archive like a lantern. Historians still argue whether Halloween's council was truly democratic or secretly governed by a proto-elite. But that's historians for you. Never met a theory they couldn't overcomplicate with footnotes. You were one of them. Are still one of them. A bell chimes above, faint but steady. It's the 4th time tonight. Funny thing, historically, 4 bells at night meant a changing of the city watch, a signal of vigilance. You like the symbolism. Why show me this, you ask. The seer traces one figure in the mural, hooded, bearing the same candle you carry now. Because you didn't fail, she says. You were hidden, guarded, buried like a seed, and now you're ready to grow. You scoff. I'm not a metaphor. No, she agrees. You're a reckoning. She pulls back a tapestry on the left wall, revealing a stairwell carved into the bedrock. Come on, she says. We've got someone to meet. You follow. The stairs climb forever, or maybe it just feels that way because the silence weighs heavier with every step. Somewhere above, you hear faint rustling, a metallic scrape, then light. You emerge into the old conservatory of Brighthallow's abandoned university, or what's left of it. Glass shattered, vines everywhere, ivy and morning glories twist through beams like they own the place. Which, honestly, they kind of do now. A small group waits in the center. No more than 10 people, young, old, every shade and shape of humanity. They all turn as you enter. At first, no one speaks. Then a boy, no more than 12, steps forward. Is it really you? You want to ask, who? But somehow, you know. The stories they've passed down, the fragments they've hoarded, the bedtime myths they clung to when even hope was illegal. They're about you. You nod, and the boy smiles. It's awkward and gap-toothed and perfect. The others gather closer, reverent but curious. Someone presses a journal into your hands, leather-bound, weathered. You flip through it and realize this is your record. Not written by you, but about you. A patchwork of oral tales, scraps of surviving letters, even graffiti. One page features an ink drawing of you standing atop the city walls, pendant glowing, arms outstretched to shield the people. A bit dramatic, sure, but emotionally accurate. You sit, they sit, and just like that, the crypt becomes a classroom. You start to speak, not with bombast, not with righteousness, with memory. You tell them about the Great Redaction, about Halloween, about the Council of Hands, about how truth became dangerous and forgetting became policy. You even tell them the weird stuff, like how one Brighthollow ruler once mandated public teeth inspections every full moon, because he believed lies hid behind molars. Historians still argue whether that was superstition or early dental hygiene gone mad. There's laughter and wonder and silence in all the right places, and you realize something strange. You're not the last of the order. You're the first of the new one. The city, for all its shadows and scars, still breathes, still remembers. You glance out the conservatory window just in time to see a red sun rise over Brighthollow's fractured skyline. The seer watches you with a quiet smile. You've done enough, she says, for now. But as the candle flickers its last breath and the room fills with the soft rustle of people ready to rebuild, you know one thing for sure. Memory never dies. It just waits. The conservatory fades behind you as you descend once again. This time, not into darkness, but into something more ancient than shadow. Silence. Not the hushed kind you find in libraries, nor the fearful hush before a storm. This silence feels expectant, like the city itself is holding its breath. You walk alone now. The seer and her group stayed behind, preparing their next steps, whatever those may be. You, however, have one last place to visit. One final page to turn in the dusty manuscript that is your life beneath Brighthollow. Your path twists toward the sanctum of echoes. Yes, it's as dramatic as it sounds. Few alive even remember its name. Fewer still believe it exists. But every child who's ever listened to a bedtime tale in Brighthollow knows the legend. A room so old, so secret, it records every spoken truth whispered within its walls. You reach an arch carved with hundreds of overlapping voices, literally. Small mouth-like glyphs etched into stone, each mid-sentence, some laughing, some crying, some just humming. You hesitate at the threshold. Because here's the deal. The sanctum doesn't lie. It doesn't distort, exaggerate, or sensationalize. It remembers exactly what you say, even the stuff you wish you could forget. Still, you step inside. Your boots click softly on the ancient mosaic floor. Dust motes swirl like ghostly punctuation in the filtered light. In the center stands a single pedestal. On it, a mirrored bowl filled with silver water. No candlelight, no theatrics, just your reflection, staring back with a face both unfamiliar and inevitable. You sit cross-legged on the floor. Your voice, when it emerges, is quieter than usual. You talk about the betrayal, not yours, but theirs. How the circle of hands fractured under pressure. How fear slithered into wisdom's robes and made itself at home. How the pendant, once a beacon, became a leash. You remember the edict, forget or be forgotten, and you didn't forget. You hid. Historians still argue whether the sanctum was a surveillance tool or a sacred trust, you say aloud, chuckling. But hey, maybe it's both. This place has serious nosy grandma energy. A ripple shivers across the silver water. The bowl speaks, not in a voice, but a feeling. A warm knowing, like memory settling into place. You keep going. You recount your escape. The crypt, the candle, the seer. You even tell it about the cinnamon smell. Because honestly, who knew embalming spices would become a plot point in your life? Eventually, your words run dry. You sit in silence once more, but the room hums with appreciation, validation, and then something unexpected happens. The walls begin to pulse, not with sound, but with presence, as if hundreds of truths are awakening at once. Voices you never knew you'd forgotten, teachers, lovers, friends, whispering their fragments back to you. One voice stands out. Your mother's, software firm familiar. Remember who you are, she says, not what they made of you. You exhale a breath you didn't realize you were holding. The mirrored bowl dimensions. The pedestal lowers into the floor, swallowed by time. And just like that, the sanctum is silent again. But you aren't. Because you're full. Full of stories, of history, of purpose. As you leave, you notice a corridor you hadn't seen before. That's starting to feel like a trend down here. This one is carved with constellations. Not star maps exactly, but a kind of celestial timeline. You walk beneath them, tracing your finger across one labeled the Starless Rain. Another says Ashfall Accord. And then you see it. A blank panel, waiting. You know what that means? It's time to carve again. Not with chisel or ink, but with action. With memory shared, not hoarded. The city's next chapter won't be written in books. It'll be spoken aloud, lived fully, reclaimed. Oh, and get this. One fringe theory floating around says these constellation panels were used as early forms of mnemonic devices, like celestial flashcards. Pretty clever for people who bathed once a season. Anyway, you climb one last staircase, feeling the heat of the surface slowly returning. The smell of smoke and forge work tickles your nose. You're nearing the district known as Iron Hollow. If the crypt was memory buried, Iron Hollow is memory forged, rebuilt, reinvented, recast. Blacksmiths still work here, as they have for centuries. Melting down metal not just for tools and swords, but for seals. And those seals, they're truth keepers. Like you. When you step out into the dawn, the sky is streaked gold and gray. Brighthollow may be bruised, but it is not broken. The blacksmith waiting for you nods once. Without a word, he gestures to his workbench. Laid out, a blank pendant, no markings and no chains, just potential. He hands it to you with tongs, as if it's still hot from the fire. Maybe it is. You close your fingers around it. It's heavier than expected. Heavier with meaning, with memory. With the promise that forgetting is no longer the safest option, you smile. Not because everything is fixed, but because finally you remember who you are. And now, so will they. You tuck the blank pendant into your cloak's inner fold, fingers brushing its edges as if expecting it to change shape mid-step. It doesn't. But somehow it already feels different. Not like a relic from the past, but like a placeholder for the future. Ahead, Iron Hollow awakens. It's not like the rest of Brighthollow. Here, soot paints every surface a matte gray, and chimneys cough into the sky like cranky old men with secrets to tell. Sparks rain from open furnaces, and the ground trembles faintly from bellows and anvils. You pass workers sharpening blades, riveting wagon wheels, hammering out plaques in the old script. One man carves a crest into molten bronze with surgical precision. Another sets a gear spinning, its edges notched in ritual patterns you vaguely remember from guild lessons you were definitely not supposed to attend. Brighthollow's industries are more than economy. They're memory made functional. A town like this doesn't preserve history in museums. It melts it down and reforges it into door hinges and lock plates. Functional little time capsules. You enter a forge known only as the Echo Smithy. There's no sign above the door, just a melted bell embedded in the lintel. The story goes it rang once for a truth so loud the city tried to silence it with fire. Now it's fused shut, forever unsounding. Inside, the heat clings to your skin like guilt. The blacksmith greets you with a nod, no small talk. Just the laying out of tools and metals. Gold flecks, tin wires, iron shards that look suspiciously like former prison keys. This is where the pendant will be forged, but not by hands, by memory. You place it on the anvil, and the smith begins preparing a basin of coals laced with, well, you're not entirely sure what. Something old, something whispery. A tiny pot of silver ash sits nearby. Cremains, he mutters. You blink. From the last circle of hands, he adds. You don't ask how he got them. The pendant enters the fire, and the air changes. The heat turns syrupy, dense, almost conversational. It starts speaking, not with words, but impressions. You smell sandalwood and hear a woman singing in a language you haven't heard since childhood. There's a memory of your brother's laugh, echoing down the steps beneath the old bell tower. Then, another memory. Your own handwriting, looping in the margins of an illegal codex. The pendant begins to glow. Here's your quirky fact of the day. In medieval Europe, some guilds believed metal could remember emotional states during forging, that if you hammered while angry, the object would retain that temper. They called it fever metal. So yeah, maybe take a deep breath next time you craft a sword. Anyway, the smith quenches the pendant in oil infused with myrrh and basil. A hiss, a sharp scent, a soft pulse through the room like a heartbeat. He lifts the pendant with tongs and offers it to you. It's changed. There's a sigil now. Not one you recognize, but one that feels known. Like the outline of a word you've heard in dreams, but never spoken aloud. You put it on, and the world shivers, just once, as if acknowledging your return. The smith opens a trap door behind the forge. Down you go, again. You're getting good at stairs, by the way. This time you descend into a circular vault, its walls made of layered brass discs. Each disc bears a name. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. You're in the registry of forgotten oaths. Here, the city keeps a record of every vow unkept, every bond broken under duress. Most were sealed in secret, made by people who vanished without finishing their promises. The registry doesn't judge. It just waits. At the center is a plinth, empty, until now. You step forward. The pendant begins to hum. It wants to belong here, but so do you. That's the paradox, isn't it? You carry a truth worth remembering, yet to remember it fully, you must surrender it to something larger than yourself. You press the pendant into the plinth, and the vault responds. Discs spin, not wildly but rhythmically, like gears in a clock remembering how to keep time. Your name appears, carved in fire, then cooling into brass. You're not forgotten anymore. And just as the door begins to open behind you, yes, another hidden exit because apparently that's Brighthollow's thing, you pause to touch the metal one last time. Warm, honest, yours. You step through and emerge in the marketplace. Dawn is bleeding into full daylight now, casting long shadows and even longer memories across the cobblestones. You hear voices rising, merchants arguing, children laughing, someone playing a flute with only 2 working notes. The world is moving again, and so are you. But now you carry history with you, not as a burden, but as armor. You turn toward the archives next, not the public ones, the ones beneath, because while the pendant might be sealed, your story isn't done. There are still pages left to write, 1 foot in shadow, 1 foot in sunlight, and a city waiting to remember itself through you. The archives beneath Brighthollow aren't marked on any map. If you're lucky, you find a crumbling stairwell beneath an apothecary. If you're really lucky, that stairwell doesn't collapse under you. But luck? Not your strong suit lately. Still, you find it, past a blind herbalist who sells dried marigold by scent and a cat with 2 different colored eyes that definitely knows too much. Beneath a shelf labeled Cures for Ailments of Memory, there's a trapdoor reinforced with pewter bands and stained in places where old books once bled ink through the floorboards. You descend again. There's something comical in how Brighthollow insists everything important must be underground. One historian, whose name escapes you, but whose beard was thick enough to store lunch, once proposed that the city was built in layers of denial. He might have been joking, or not. Historians still argue whether Brighthollow was designed as a fortress of secrets, or simply became one by accident. The steps lead to a circular vestibule, walls lined with shelves. No books here, only scrolls, and not parchment. This is bone scrollwork. Strips of polished animal rib, etched with impossibly fine script, curled and tied with silk threads. A clerk sits at the center, not young, not old, more like timelessly unimpressed. You present nothing. They already know why you're here. You're late, the clerk mutters, even though no time was given. You follow them through aisles that seem to twist in defiance of logic. Shelves rearrange subtly as you pass, as if hiding the more dangerous records until you've earned their trust. Then, finally, you arrive. Your file, a small lacquered case, blackwood, latch-shaped like a sleeping snake. The clerk slides it open, and there it is. Your true name. Not the one you use. Not the one the city whispers. The one that was taken. It doesn't shock you, not really. You've always known it was missing. Like an echo with no original sound. But to see it written, crisp and certain, stirs something you can't name. You want to read the rest? The clerk asks. You nod. They pull out 2 more scrolls, one labeled Inherited, one marked Omitted. You reach first for Inherited. It speaks of your father, not the man who raised you, but the one who vanished before your first word. A scribe of forbidden tongues. A keeper of war chants older than empires. A man who wrote truth so dangerous, the ink was ground from gemstones and the pages dissolved after reading. He'd once inscribed a song that made a tower bleed. And then he disappeared. Some say he joined the hollow choir, others that he became part of Brighthollow, buried beneath the bricks, humming truth into foundations. You set the scroll down, heart thumping. You reach for Omitted. This one, it's blank. At first. Then the letters surface, slow, like mist lifting from a riverbank. These are the moments erased from public record, the choices you don't even remember making, the nights you wandered catacombs in your sleep, the names you spoke without sound, and one message written in red ink that shimmers faintly. What you forgot was not lost, it was protected. You sit back. Your mind hums with recognition, like puzzle pieces shifting, clicking into place. There's a phrase in the scroll's margin, Auctor Lacrimarum, the author of tears, a title, a role, possibly you or your father. Historians still argue whether the author of Tears was a single figure or a mantle passed down, a weeper of truth, a mourner of erased legacies. Either way, the implication is clear. Your bloodline was never idle. It crafted memory. You stand. The clerk doesn't ask for the scrolls back. They were never really taken from you in the first place. Outside, the wind has changed. You step into the open, and the sun finds you, not blinding, but acknowledging, like an old friend who's stopped pretending not to recognize you. You make your way to the riverfront, because there's one last place memory hides in Brighthollow. Underwater, specifically in the flooded Chapel of Lanterns, half submerged since the great rains of 838. They never drained it, said it was holier that way. You slip through the broken fence, ignore the warning signs, danger, liturgical decay, and step into the shallows. The floor beneath the water is mosaic, stones arranged in the shape of a tree, each leaf a different dialect. You remember studying it long ago. Each step across its branches is meant to activate a verse. You walk. A line whispers, "Let those who drowned still speak." Another, "All memory is baptism." You kneel where the trunk meets the roots, and there, beneath the silt and candle stubs, you find it. A final pendant. This one cracked. This one, yours, from before. You press the new pendant beside it. They join, not with light or magic, but silence, the kind that understands. And then, ripples, not in the water, but in you. The kind that say, you are no longer a witness. You are the memory. Now go speak what was silenced. You don't remember leaving the Chapel of Lanterns, and that's not even the strangest part. What's strange is how no one stops you. Not the sentry at the pier whose gaze slips past you like smoke. Not the market boy who flinches from your shadow. Not even the blind crow that circles overhead and lands without cawing. It's as though the city has made peace with your presence again. Or maybe it's waiting for your next mistake. You make your way toward the Court of Dust. Yes, that court. The one nobody admits still exists, despite it being older than Brighthollow's charter itself, where justice isn't served but measured, as if consequence were a weight and guilt a currency. You remember the entrance is hidden behind the dried fountain of St. Valorous, the saint of forgotten crimes. Classic Brighthollow logic, right? Honor the things we try hardest not to remember. You reach the fountain. Its basin is filled with dead leaves and a single tin coin that never rusts. You lift it, turn it twice, and press it against the relief of the saint's face. The stone clicks inward. A panel shifts, and just like that, you descend again. If this story had a drinking game, you'd sip every time you go underground. The court is empty. That's never good. No whispering jurists, no parchment-fingered clerks in powdered wigs. Just a single mirror, taller than a man, rimmed with iron carved to look like weeping trees. You stare into it, expecting a reflection. What you get instead? Memory. Not yours, the city's. It begins slow. A woman, dressed in the morning blue of Old Temple, places a baby on cathedral steps. The sky's bruised purple with sunset. No note, no hesitation. She walks away humming a lullaby so old, historians still argue whether it was originally sung to children or to prisoners. Then another vision. You, barely 12, slipping through the priest hall kitchens, stealing figs, overhearing your name in a sentence that ends with, "Must never know the truth." You don't understand then, but the fear in the cook's face when she sees you lingers sharp as lemon peel. The scenes come faster now. You are both audience and archive. The city is telling you what it's hidden. There's the library fire, blamed on faulty lamps, but the mirror shows a hand lighting the flame, not trembling. There's the bishop's masked ball, meant as celebration, but underneath those masks, whispered oaths in languages long banned. And always circling back to you, not as a child, not even as an adult, but in roles you didn't know you'd played. A scribe in the wrong century, a shadow beside a revolutionary, a hooded figure at a burial no one else attended. Time, it seems, is as unreliable in Brighthollow as honesty. You raise a hand to the mirror, and it shudders, because it's not a mirror anymore, it's a door, and the latch waits for you to open it. You do. Inside, not a courtroom, a crypt, not the burial kind, the memory kind. Hundreds of books, bound not in leather, but in cloth taken from clothes once worn. You read the titles: Regrets, Volume 115, Lies That Worked, Affairs with No Love, Kindnesses Never Repaid. Then you see one with your name. You hesitate, which is ridiculous considering everything else you've touched in this story. But something about holding a book of your own erased past hits differently. You open it. The first page is simple. To be remembered is to be rewritten. Then it begins to chronicle not your deeds, but your thoughts. The moments you nearly confessed, the things you almost destroyed, the kindnesses you held back. And that phrase again, auctur lacrimarum. In the margin this time, written in tiny script, the author does not write for others. They write to release. You look up. Someone else stands in the crypt now. No footsteps announce their arrival. They wear no insignia, no robe, only a simple satchel. They hand it to you. Inside, empty pages, hundreds of them. The person speaks, calmly as if this were a picnic invitation. Your turn. And you realize it's time to write. Not the grand history, not the war chronicles, just the truth. But here's the catch. The moment you start, you can't stop. The author writes until everything is remembered. That's why they disappear. Not because they flee, because they become consumed. You look at the blank pages, at the pen offered, a quill from a swan's wing, faintly charred. You write the first word, not your name and not truth. You write begin, and something behind you closes, not a door. You keep writing. The ink doesn't come from any bottle. It flows from the quill like memory itself, hot, aching, persistent. And the pages drink it up, curling ever so slightly, as if warmed by the stories they now carry. You begin with what you remember. The night of the cathedral gate, the sigil carved into Sister Bellamy's palm, the scent of iron and ash. You describe it all in detail, even the things you wish you could forget. And the pen doesn't judge. It doesn't pause. It simply lets you remember in real time. And what you remember changes. Because the more you write, the more the past reshapes around you. That stormy night, it wasn't just Sister Bellamy on the gate. There was someone behind the sigil, another hand guiding the knife. Someone you didn't see until now. And when you write their name on the page, you hear something groan behind the stone shelves, as if the very walls of the crypt acknowledge it. This is not just catharsis, it's activation. One page talks about your childhood in the orphan wing, about the false name they gave you, about the missing page in the chapel registry. As soon as you finish that line, a little book unlatches itself from the top shelf and drops at your feet. Its title? Aldrich, the borrowed name. Apparently even identities are on loan in Brighthollow. You flip through it and find entries in 3 different hands. One from a monk, one from a city scribe, and the third, a woman's script. You recognize from your dreams. The one who left you on the cathedral steps. The one who sang the lullaby with the prisoner's cadence. She hadn't been mourning. She'd been watching, making sure you made it through the gate. You sit back. This is no longer just about memory. It's selection, because the moment you write, the city reveals. But you only get to learn what you have the nerve to recall. That's how the crypt works. That's why it's sealed off from the court. Because here, the judgment isn't legal. It's internal. You decide to test it. You write something you're not sure is true. I caused the fire in the library of threads. And instantly, the pen jerks in your grip, ink going dry. Guess there's no room for dramatic flair here. You scratch it out. You try again, this time honest. I didn't stop the fire. The pen flows again. A door opens behind you. No latch, no creak, just the sudden appearance of possibility. You walk through. It leads to a circular chamber, low-ceilinged and strangely warm. At the center, a basin of water, dark, calm, reflective. Around it, a dozen masks, hanging like moons. Each one bears a name you know. People you've wronged, people who wronged you, people you never properly met but still think about at odd hours of the night. This, apparently, is the Hall of Reconciliation. You pick up one of the masks, etched with the face of the priest who exiled you from the lower cloisters. The man who claimed you were cursed. Underneath his name is written, "He feared what he saw in you because it mirrored what he denied in himself." Well, that's a lot to emotionally process in a room without snacks. You put the mask back. The next one is trickier. It bears your face, not as it is now, but younger, wide-eyed, not yet guarded. On the inside, just one word, return. You take a breath, because you know what this means. To reconcile with others, you must first reconcile with yourself, your former selves, the ones you've tried to bury under intellect and discipline and coffee addiction. You sit, you place the mask over your face, and then suddenly you are inside one of your earliest memories. A courtyard, noon sun, a sparrow pecking at crumbs near your boot. You're 6. You're alone, but not afraid. And there's someone standing just beyond the archway. Older, watching, it's you. You're watching yourself. And your older self nods. You don't say anything, you don't need to. Because in Brighthollow, even time takes detours. When you return to your current body, the mask is gone. So is the chamber. So is the guilt. Well, not gone. Just distributed. Rebalanced. You stand in a long corridor now, lit with ever-burning candles. The smell of ink lingers behind you. But the scent ahead? Pine. Cold air. Distant bells. A sign you're almost out of the crypt, which should be comforting. Except you know Brighthollow better than that. The city never lets you surface unchanged. And you've still got 2 pages left. You step into the corridor, and it doesn't so much stretch forward as fold inward, like you're walking through the crease of a book. The candles on either side don't flicker. They pulse. Dim. Bright. Dim. Bright. As if syncing with your breath, your steps, your thoughts. You follow the scent of pine, thinking maybe, just maybe, it leads outside. But of course not. It leads to a mirror. Well, sort of. It looks like a mirror, silver-framed and upright. But it doesn't reflect your body. Instead, it reflects what you've hidden, the parts you've deflected, rewritten, or disowned. It's less like looking, and more like remembering, with shame-colored glasses. There's your fear, in full regalia. Not some cartoon monster, but a younger version of you, curled beneath a desk, hiding from the thunder. There's your ambition, charming and venomous, shaking hands with men who'd never say your name without power attached to it. And there's your rage. Oh, hello again, tugging at your coat sleeve like a child who never grew up. You stare, and they stare back. Until finally, the reflection shows one more image. A book, untitled, blank cover, but unmistakably bound in your own skin. Cool. You reach forward and touch it. Instantly, the corridor fades. Now you're somewhere else. Underground, but not dark. The walls are lined with frescoes. Ancient, cracked, flaking, but unmistakably drawn in the Brighthollow style. You see moments from the city's founding. A procession of masked builders carrying bricks that shimmer like gold. A council of midwives arguing philosophy over steaming stew pots. A king with no crown, bowing before a commoner holding a feather. Quirky tidbit. Brighthollow's original charter was signed in perfumed ink. Allegedly, lavender and myrrh, because even legally binding documents deserve to smell fabulous. You keep moving, taking in the images. Here's something stranger. One fresco is unfinished. The plaster ends abruptly, the pigment fading out. But etched into the stone beside it are these words. When memory is lost, tradition fills the gap. Historians still argue whether that phrase was part of an early religious doctrine or just some particularly poetic graffiti. Either way, it lands heavy here, because you know exactly what it means. The farther down you go, the more of your life you've reconstructed, not remembered. You didn't choose every memory you carry. Some were planted, repeated, gilded, turned into myths. Even you don't know which parts are yours anymore. You reach the next chamber. This one's different. Silent, circular, and full of names. They're carved into the floor, spiraling outward from the center like a labyrinth of identity. And right at the core, written larger than the rest, is a name that stops you cold. Aldrich, the witness. You kneel beside it, and suddenly, like a pop quiz from the cosmos, you remember things that never made it into your journals. A fire in the crypts long before you were born. A masked child wandering through smoke, carrying a bell. A whispered phrase in an unspoken tongue. Memories burn longer than fire. You sit back. This name, the witness. It's not just ceremonial, it's functional. You weren't just born into this city. You were embedded, positioned. Your whole life you've been watching Brighthollow, but the city has been watching you too. You look at the other names in the spiral. Some you recognize, archivists, priests, scribes, and one particularly dramatic tailor who always swore he was descended from saints. Some names shimmer faintly. Those ones? You realize they're still alive. And then you see a gap, a space with no name, just a groove, waiting. You know what this means. Before you leave the crypt, you have to decide what to become. Not what you were, not what you're called, but what you choose. That's how the city works. And it's not about solving some ancient mystery. It's about surviving the weight of your own legacy. You draw the pen from your coat again. It feels heavier now. You kneel. You place the tip to stone. You write, Aldrich, the Rememberer. And the groove accepts it. The ink sears into the floor with a soft hiss, like a kettle announcing a quiet truth. And just like that, the air shifts. The stone walls breathe. You rise. Behind you, the corridor has reappeared. This time, it leads upward. Each step is easier than the last. Your legs no longer ache. Your breath no longer fogs. You're not being freed. You're freeing yourself. By the time you reach the top, you expect to find night. But no, it's dawn. Brighthollow, in all its crooked cloud-draped beauty, stretches before you. Rooftops glistening with dew. Birds arguing cheerfully about worms. Bells ringing, not for death or warning, but for waking. You step out from the crypt into the clean, cold morning. You're not afraid. You've carried your story through the dark. Now you carry it into the light. Your boots hit the cobblestones with a gentle tap, 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 the rhythm almost meditative. The city stirs slowly, like a cat stretching after a long nap. Brighthollow doesn't rush, it unfolds. Chimney smoke rises in lazy curls, the market tarps flap as they're rolled out. And someone somewhere is already burning garlic and rosemary, which feels like a direct assault on your stomach. But your path doesn't lead to breakfast. You find yourself walking toward the Civic Archive, that sharp-angled stone building wedged between the apothecary and a bakery that refuses to name any of its pastries. It's funny. You've been here dozens of times. Filed papers, pored over maps, flirted with the clerk who always wears gloves even in summer. But this time, you're not a visitor. You're a rememberer now. Which frankly still sounds a little like a sleep-deprived librarian crossed with a medium. You enter, and the dust greets you like an old friend, musty, weighty, maybe a little judgy. The clerk, Gloriana, doesn't look up from her book. You're late, she says, sipping something that smells aggressively herbal. I'm reborn, you counter. She rolls her eyes. So were 3 monks last week. They still had to fill out Form 27B, mainstream historical fact. Brighthollow bureaucracy is notoriously meticulous. One king once declared war solely because the paperwork to apologize was 68 pages longer than the one to retaliate. You fill it out, begrudgingly. Then you descend into the archives, passing shelves labeled rumors, disproven legends, and one intriguing alcove called Maybe True, Maybe Tuesday. The torchlight here is steady, warm. Like the city is finally saying, okay, we trust you. You head for the sealed wing, the place only keepers and rememberers can go. The lock isn't a keyhole. It's a riddle. Your voice is the key. You speak the final line from the mirror chamber. Memories burn longer than fire. The door slides open, smoother than it has any right to. Inside is a map, not of Brighthollow's streets, of its secrets. Every forgotten path, buried room, hidden chapel, and collapsed tunnel is sketched here in spiderweb lines. It's less a cartographic guide and more a memory lattice. Living minds don't make it. The city does. One detail changes daily. You stare. Then you find it. Something new. A corridor beneath the old observatory. Not on any previous record. Still breathing. That's your next step, you think. But something inside you, some newer, quieter part, suggests, not yet. Because you've been in the dark too long. So you fold the map carefully. And for the first time in this entire strange journey, you walk nowhere. Just out into the square. Just to be. There's a bench. You sit. The wind picks up and it carries voices. Not whispers now, but conversations. A woman bartering over onions. Children naming pigeons. A priest laughing at his own joke. The living city. You lean back. Let the sun touch your face. This is what the Crypt tried to teach you. Memory is not a thing you hoard. It's a thing you share. Your name is Aldrich. You are the rememberer. And your story is just beginning. Now that the Crypt doors have closed behind you and the morning's light spills gently across Brighthollow's quiet streets, it's time to slow things down. You shift your weight on the bench, feeling the wood worn smooth by generations of passers-by who also paused. Maybe after a long journey. Maybe after nothing at all. You listen to the soft rustle of tree branches overhead, leaves brushing one another like pages turning in the city's book. Your breath eases. And so does the world. Somewhere a bell rings once. Not a warning, just a timekeeper's nudge, letting you know the night has done its work. No one else knows what you found beneath the crypt. No one else could have carried it out but you. The darkness didn't change you. It revealed you. And though you'll return to everyday things, lanterns to light, boots to polish, tea that never stays hot long enough, something is different now. You don't chase answers. You tend to them, so let this stillness carry you. Like a boat on soft water. Let the edges blur and the hush return. Let the stories ripple through you without needing to hold them. Because some nights, remembering is enough. And you've remembered beautifully. Thanks for being here. Sweet dreams.